This is a tale that starts with Mike Kenna. Who knows who Mike Kenna is? Mike Kenna, United States Golf Association, head of research at the time in 2015, called me on the phone. First of all, that was a surprise. Secondly, he asked me, he said, you know, Tom, I need you to do a study. I need to know the impact of putting green management on wear caused by foot traffic. He said the problem with it is no one else at the USGA wants to do it, just me. So I'm going to give you the money. Don't write up a report or anything. In fact, I don't want them to even know that you're doing this. I'm not kidding you. So I called Doug Karcher and said, hey, we might be able to make some money. And I called him because I realized it was going to become a rather big factorial study. And Doug Karcher, as far as I know, is the best turfgrass statistician to handle really complicated stuff. So he should actually be giving the talk. In any event, it was a fun study. It was a worthy study. It was a whole bunch of stuff that we had to look at. And if you've never seen me give a presentation, and I don't care if I have 10 minutes or if I have 5 hours, I always start the same way. It's with history. Because if I don't really give the history, I don't know if we're really having the same conversation or not. And for me, this all is going to begin with the early history of golf spikes. Now, if you want to know how far back we're going to go, we'll go back to, well, the beginning. And the beginning was actually in 1893. In 1893 was the first time we know that golf spikes were actually worn on a green, and we only know this from a photograph. Before that, we have no inclination that it ever happened at all. In 1913, Walter Hagen, who was a professional golfer in an era of amateur golfers, so he was much disdained and hated. He wasn't even allowed in the clubhouse when he was winning the Opens. In 1913, he wore red rubber-soled shoes at the Open, and he wrote afterwards, I slid all over the course in the wet weather. It was terrible, and he lost. He thought he was going to win, and he lost on the last day. In 1914, he wears hobnail shoes, and he wins. And that changes everything. Everyone decides, I'm going to slip all over the place if I don't have spikes. So he decides to buy spikes, and by 1919, it's the standard. It only took 3 years to people to try and get rid of them. That fast. They were seen as a negative by a lot of people, but the golfers, maybe you haven't noticed, can be a tad arrogant, and they want to wear spikes, they're going to wear spikes. So, but just 3 years later, we're trying to get rid of them, and then we start doing research, and this is the first research ever done with them. It was by the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. They wanted to get rid of spikes. And so they were comparing spikes to their lug shoes, which are over here. And yeah, I know you can't read this, but what it says is they traffic these plots, and this photo is taken 1 month after the wear. 1 month. And you can kind of still see the wear, right? And that was Doug Saldut's students doing this, right? And this is a month after they do it, and I think since this is all about sustainability and moving forward and grabbing a greener, this is what turf was like. I can walk back, and Doug's people can walk back and forth on their plots all day, and tomorrow if no one's done any walking on it, you can't even tell, can you? I mean, the practitioners are so friggin' good at what they do. We've advanced so much. This is another one. These are plots, again, 1959. That's the year I was born. That's 63 years ago. Still trying to get rid of it. And there's a big thing that I really want to point out about all of this, is when all these people are wearing metal spikes, and if you go back and you find these papers and you read them, the number one thing they're complaining about is the indentations made by metal spikes. Wait a minute. That's not what got rid of metal spikes. First of all, This is field day at Michigan State in 1996. We did a spike study, and I did a spike study because I was 100% sure that metal spikes were fine. I wanted to prove Danny Berger wrong. I knew his research was terrible, and I did this and was wow. We created a rating scale. 1, 5, well, we ended up redoing this scale in time. We learned from this one. But 1 is recommend banning these spikes from my golf course. 5 is no visible foot traffic. After doing this like a year, we realized we did it backwards. This should be 1 and this should be 5. And then we made it even easier because what we did is have golfers do this. And so we just made them say A, B, C, D, or E because they could understand it. Right? So that got good. And one of the things we did, this is 21 golf spike designs, 187 raters. These are mainly superintendents and assistant superintendents. And one of the things we added into this was those boards. And I stepped 100 times on each board with every one of those spikes. And I remember when I sent all these slides to the GCSAA, and that's right, slides, for publication, and they said, well, we're only going to pick 3, which is the most important three. And I said, if you don't do all 21, there's no point. And they actually published it. So when we sit here and we talk about where we need to go, which we should always talk about where we need to go, I think it's always important to remember how far we have come, because we've come a long way. And watching these first 3 speakers today, wow, where we're going is awesome. But this was basically the demise of the spike, were these boards. They were done. And among these, there were brand new things. This, the soft walk up there, when you stepped on hard surfaces, actually went inside. It still screwed up the infrastructure. So when we talk about things like, this one had a little metal component, there was one that was made out of ceramic. You couldn't destroy the infrastructure. Everything was gone. All these companies started trying to sue me because they lost. I'm not kidding. And then some of them got smart and they merged together. And we moved forward. Awesome. This is how fast it happened. January 95, 55 courses in the United States has banned golf spikes. By 98, over 3,000. And if there's an important message in that for us all to think about as we do any type of research anywhere, get the word out and let the golfers take care of it. Because 1, this saved millions and millions and millions of dollars since that time on carpet repair, cart repair, benches, concrete, everything. And all they could do was complain. This is a picture I was with Dr. Doug Karcher, and we were at the old course at St. Andrews when Gordon Murr was the superintendent. And this is the biggest misnomer. Everyone thinks the 8mm spike always causes the same type of damage as they do today, and that's not true. In fact, I was a golf course superintendent. I took over a golf course. I started top dressing every week to every 2 weeks on a course that used to be top dressed twice a year. The shoulders. And I'll never forget one day walking past the second green and seeing something I'd never seen on a golf course in my life, and I'd worked on a golf course at that time for 8 years. There were these things called Christmas trees, and they were named Christmas trees by the golfers, by the PGA golfers. They named them Christmas trees because it was actually pulling the plant out of the ground. And I thought, what the heck is going on? And what that was, and why that happened, blew me away. I thought I was going to get fired. I left before I figured it out and went into research. But the fact is, a conundrum with the collection of data for us was if we're going to compare all these spikes in traffic, which is what we're getting to. Oh, I better hurry. I'm right where you were, Doug. I can't just collect the data. I need a lot of people to collect the data. It can't just be my personal opinion. Why did these Christmas trees come about? We can look at 3 things that made it happen. 1, thinner bed knives. Thinner bed knives led to lower heights of cut. 2, sand top dressing, which people used to do on the shoulder seasons, if at all, where it's now being done more frequently. And we're banning, positive steps forward, things like chlordane. And if any of you have ever sprayed chlordane, like I did in 1985, it's still there. And what that would do is it killed so many microbes that thatch built up. You get rid of the thatch, which we've done by being such great practitioners, that's when you get the Christmas trees. And that's what led to the ban of 8mm spikes. A lot of people wanted to bring them back, and that was part of the reason that I got the call from Mike anyway. So we did some testing. First of all, before we could do what Mike wanted us to do, we also then had to find the most intrusive. It was written in, this is the way we wrote it up. We wanted to find the most intrusive or destructive type of current cleat on the market. To do that, we went to about 30 different sites over a 1.5 year period. Bermuda grass, paspalum, fine fescue, everywhere. And we wanted to find the most destructive spikes we could, and that's what we would use in our research to do this research. Here we are at St. Andrews, and what we did is we used, in this case, 5 spike designs, or I think 4, I'll show you in a minute. But this is a fine fescue putting surface, and we looked at 5 designs, and here's what the data looks like when you end up doing it. We have all these things, and we call them snakes. And we had 19 people in this case. We usually like to get around 30, but could only get 19 that day. And this is the untreated control plot, and it's got the A above it. So that means statistically it was the best. Everyone rated as being the best. You have the green bars on the bottom are excellent or A. The lime green would be B, yellow would be C, orange would be D, and red would be you failed. And the important thing about this graph is it got rid of the people complaining, hey, today's spikes are worse than the metal spike of 20 years ago. Well, this is the 8mm spike, failed. This is the champ scorpion, which at one point was the #1 spike. It's failing. The black widow, that was famous. This is the Adidas Zero. Anyone remember that one? This is the one that was just around 5 years ago. It was thought as being the worst one ever made, but everything in the past was still worse. We got a lot of people in America saying, make America great again. My question is, when the hell was it great? I know several things about me. If I'm going to go back in time, there's a couple things I want. I want running water, I want a toilet, I want warm water, and I want air conditioning. So I can't go back any further than 1970. So people are complaining things are always better. No, they're not. So we did this. What we found is we got rid of the entire idea, and I can't go over all of this, but what we found was we can't talk about shoe types. We had to talk about the design, what plastics go into it. And we pretty well figured out that cleatless designs with rubber outsoles generally cause less visible traffic than cleated designs with thermoplastic polyurethane outsoles. And I could probably talk about this for 40 minutes, but I don't have that kind of time. It all led to now we can do this study, and this is my materials and methods, and I have 7 minutes. Great. We did a study with grooming, lightweight rolling, sand top dressing, and nitrogen fertility. These are all the different rates we used. And we threw them in. Treatments are applied in a 4-factor split plot experimental design with 3 replications of the whole plot factor grooming applied in randomized blocks. I don't know what that means, but Doug wrote it, okay? We had untreated borders, we had all these different, we had nitrogen fertility every 14 days, we had 2 different things, blah, blah, blah. We had combinations of sand top dressing and rolling. We both started our treatments in May of 2016. Same day. We applied foot traffic in a manner not like Doug's people of walking back and forth. We concentrated more as if it was around the 4-inch circle. And so what I make my employees do is this, okay? Which, by the way, at my age, begins to hurt pretty soon. Here's the scale again. 1 equals excellent or no visible traffic. Very good, I think I see foot traffic. Good, some visible foot traffic, but acceptable. Fair, visible foot traffic that could deflect my putt. 5, poor, terrible putting conditions. Recommend banning the cleat sole from our golf course. And that's it's that simple. And we've gone around to lots of courses and did it. We just did it at our own courses. We collected lots of other data, and then the evaluation data was analyzed using the mixed procedure in SAS software V9.4 for repeated measures ANOVA with compounds of medical variance structure that split stops. Yeah, that is what Doug did. This is what the plots actually look like. The big ones were grooming, then we split it left to right for nitrogen, then some plots in here were rolled 3 times, and some were top dressed, some weren't. This gives us a big factorial mess and a lot of data, but some of it was really cool. Oh, I might make it. The impact. One of the neatest things about this, and Aaron Hathaway, is Aaron Hathaway in the room? Aaron Hathaway was my technician, and I'm sure he quit because of this study. And you could walk by this study any time of the year and look at those 4 factors, but you could look at it and not see a difference among any plot. I mean, right now, there's just not much there. But boy, when we trafficked them, there was a difference, which is cool. This is one of the first things we noticed early on. Higher nitrogen rates lead to more traffic, especially with today's designs. Our plots were both less than a year old when we started. So our rates were higher than normally you'd apply because we're still trying to get the entire thing to fill in. That was just by chance, but it was rather perfect. One of our recommendations from it is anybody growing in a new golf course for at least the first year and probably the first 2 should ban all spikes whatsoever because it really helps it grow in. And these indentations you can easily see. Top dressing. Regular top dressing was the #1 thing we could see that helped get rid of visible wear damage, just staying on top of it. Awesome. High nitrogen, top dressing. Let's see. Grooming. Grooming at times, and this grooming being the biggest factor, was the one that got lost the most. And for those that don't know grooming was something that I was always sure was a complete waste of time because you could groom and not even see you were doing anything. But at times, we found grooming, especially in combination with sand top dressing, diminish foot traffic even more. It was a really nice look. I wouldn't say we got data strong enough that I could say, I know it will do this. I will say this. We need to do a really good grooming study that's just a grooming study. And grooming, if you don't know, isn't verticutting. Verticutting is going very deep. You can groom and not even tell you're doing anything. And it would still give us, at times, decreased foot traffic. The thing that was the strangest thing to us, and this is a big take-home message, and I'm barely going to make it, but this is cool. Rolling at University of Arkansas and Michigan State University often ended up increasing visible wear. Now, if you don't know me, I kind of made rolling popular. But why? And the big take home for anyone that's in research, the dumbest, the most inadequate thing I read in most research papers is this statement. And plots were irrigated to stop drought stress. What the heck does that even mean? It just means we just didn't really care. Doug watered to 90% ET, I did it to 80% ET. What it really proved is they were too wet because rolling also increased volumetric moisture content, which we know, which is a positive if we use a TDR to measure it. That's a good thing. Don't have time to do this. This just proves irrigation, increases it. So in closing, sand top dressing, awesome. Increased surface firmness, it's good. The greater amount of moisture, more visible indentations. Rolling resulted in firmer surfaces. It really did with a true firm, but greater volumetric water content. So use a TDR to help get your exact water moisture, which, by the way, then rolling can save you on irrigation. The combination of rolling and grooming resulted in the most visible foot traffic, and higher nitrogen rates resulted in the greatest indentation of traffic anywhere. And with that, thank you for your support. I'm done. Sorry, I'm 1 minute over.